What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in today for another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez. I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn, as always. And today we're going to be talking about some reactions to Jamal Adams being traded to the Seattle Seahawks. Matt, take it away.
Man, short term, the Seahawks got an excellent safety, but long term, they got fleeced. I mean, they gave up the farm, and I can't believe they gave up that much for a safety. I mean, we talked about last year how much Pittsburgh had to give up to get Minka Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins, and that trade looks like Pittsburgh swindled at this point. I mean, you're talking Jamal Adams for 2 firsts and a third. I mean, that is crazy. I can't believe that. That almost makes the Nuke Hopkins trade look relatively okay. It doesn't. Well, hold on, it doesn't. But I'm just saying, like that's a lot. And I know Adams is that guy that they want at safety. By the way, don't forget about Bradley McDougall, who isn't exactly a practice squad player. He's not terrible, not great, but he's not terrible. You got a guy in Adams that's he's a playmaker. He's a difference maker. I saw a stat where if Jamal Adams had his current sack total from last year, which was 6.5, and he was on the Seahawks, he would have led that team in sacks, which is terrible. But you give up the farm for a safety. And I know people, and this bothers me the most, is when people online say, well, they're not good at picking first-round picks anyway. Okay, well, then trade them for second and third and fourth-round picks where you have had a pretty decent track record of picking up players. But you essentially mortgaged your future for now. And there's a lot of holes in that roster. I mean, for as much as you like, man, we got a great player in Jamal Adams back there at the safety position. What have you done to address the offensive line for Russell Wilson? What have you put behind him in the backfield that, you had serious injuries to those running backs last year, and you don't know what you're going to get, The receiver core is pretty good, but you don't really have a great tight end. Your defensive line, obviously, if Jamal Adams was going to lead the team with 6.5 sacks, defensive line is terrible. Not to mention that Clowney's now gone out in free agency. Who knows where he's going to end up, but it doesn't look like he's going to be back in Seattle. And this is a Seattle team that has a ton of holes. And some people will be out there saying like, oh, they're going to compete. I guess if you consider 9-7 and a wild card and being out in the first round competing, fine, that's what you're going to do. But to all those people who are like, man, they won this trade or they have the best roster in the NFC. If you're saying that, shame on you, because they don't. It's shocking, but they gave up way too much, in my opinion, even for a player as elite as Jamal Adams is.
Go off, Matt. Jesus Christ. That's awesome. I agree with you. They got robbed. The Jets took them for a ride, and they left them naked on the side of the road. I mean, they just completely took them for one. And I've seen people.
Well, just real quick, by the way, wasn't Jamal Adams just criticizing the Jets GM for not being able to do his job right and not being ready for that role? And then he turns around and ships him off and gets a king's ransom in return. Whoops. I mean, I agree with him on Adam Gase being a terrible head coach. That's fine. But, man, he went in on the general manager, and the general manager said, oh, hold my beer. It was crazy. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great point. He did, like, only a couple days before all this happened, too. But I've seen people on Twitter literally say this closes the gap between the 49ers and the Seahawks.
Absolutely not.
It brings the Seahawks.
Hell no. No, it doesn't.
Yeah. I can't agree more. There is a rather prominent Seattle Seahawks blogger. His handle's Evan in Seattle. And not to call anybody out specifically, but I just saw this tweet, and I just think it's so atrocious. And I know he's trolling. But I just got to cover it. And he said here, he kind of gave out his predictions. And, Seattle's at the top, 12-4. Cardinals second, 10-6. Rams third, 8-8. And 49ers 7-9. And the stupidity here is just off the charts.
Who Evan in Seattle wrote that?
Yeah.
Evan in Seattle been drinking. Evan in Seattle need to go to sleep before he hits send on that tweet. He has to be trolling. That's just, come on. The Rams, come on.
Yeah.
That's, no.
You can bear no doubt that he's trolling. But I even saw guys like former 49ers beat reporter Joe Fan kind of tweeting out that it really, really narrows that gap. And I love Joe, but I disagree. I don't think one player has that big of an effect on the team. Like you were saying in your response, this team has so many holes that you plug one elite player. Yes, he's the best player at his position in the NFL, but that only does so much. There's not a quarterback
Exactly.
of the defense.
And I'd like to point out that, Russell Wilson will cover a lot of warts. He will cover a lot of warts. He's that good. But he's also starting to age. He's going to be 31, 32 this year. He's taken some poundings lately. He's not always he's stayed relatively injury free, which is awesome. But the corollary that I would like to draw is, how often have we heard, man, if Aaron Rodgers just had a little bit more here or here or here, what could he have done? And I think it's a similar situation where Russell Wilson is so good at covering up the flaws that even the team is like, well, we can address that stuff later. And then before you know it, your team is full of holes, and all of a sudden Russell Wilson isn't able to carry you the way that he did before. You can talk about Jamal Adams being as good as you want, but I mean, for me, he's better at pass rushing than he is at coverage, even though he is a good cover guy. But they don't have any pass rush, so even if you have Jamal Adams back there, there's still going to be plenty of other weapons that you have to account for. And somebody had said, oh well, he's they got him to stop George Kittle. Good luck. I mean, nobody else has been able to do it so far. So if that's what you did and you think that keeping up with the 49ers means, keeping up with Kittle, I mean, you got another thing coming. That's not going to be enough. This is not the Colin Kaepernick 49ers that couldn't seem to beat the Seahawks. This is an entirely different team. And if Seattle goes in there complacent thinking like, oh, this is the same old 49ers, then they're going to have a rude awakening this season, not to mention the Cardinals have gotten significantly better. And you're saying that Seattle is going to be first in the division, or Seattle has closed that gap? No way.
No way. I agree. I think it's 49ers, Arizona, Seattle, Rams. I think that's how it shapes up when it's all said and done. But we've talked about this, and you've said it yourself. Sure, you can double, triple team George Kittle, but then there's Debo. Then there's Brandon Ayuk. There are these other receivers, Kendrick Bourne. Even, who knows what Dante Pettis, Trent Taylor, Jalen Hurts. There are all these other guys who can then get open. You can't double everyone. There's only so many guys on the field. So if you're getting, and, if they really did this to stop George Kittle, they mortgaged their entire, immediate future to do this. And it's almost laughable because good luck. That's almost what I feel like saying. Good luck.
Yeah.
Sure, you can do that, but there's no guarantee it's going to work. Now, how much better does this make the Seahawks, being kind of unbiased here?
I mean, I think it improves the safety spot. Do I think Jamal Adams is an upgrade over McDougal? Yeah, a big upgrade. He's one of the top 3 safeties in the NFL, I would say. Is a fair, maybe Tyrann Mathieu, probably the best. People sleep on Keith Byard in Tennessee, but he's fantastic. You got a couple others out there. He's one of the best. But at the same time, Bobby Wagner's getting older. Maybe, you don't have a defensive line. You don't have an offensive line. At some point, you have to address these, these areas of need. And what do you usually do that with? Picks. Why are the New England Patriots the New England Patriots? Because they always trade out of the first round and get second, third, and fourth round picks. Always. That's what they do. And that's why they were able to keep, to keep stockpiling talent, find all these guys that fit the mold, and to mortgage your future like that for the here and now, I mean, I know you said the Cardinals are probably the second best team in the division. I would argue that they're pretty close because the Cardinals still have a lot of holes too. But to say that they've closed the gap on the 49ers, I mean, that's crazy talk. And people, you want to sleep on Jimmy Garoppolo, that's fine. I know not everybody's going to, vibe with the NFL top 100. There's a lot of, but they have him, 43rd? Okay, so, I mean, people act like Jimmy Garoppolo is trash. He's definitely not trash. That's for sure. You got more weapons on the outside for him to find. You're going to have a ton of guys coming back from injury. The offensive line is top 10 offensive line in the NFL. The defensive line is the best defensive line in the NFL. The linebacking core, when everybody's healthy, is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, the secondary is maybe the one weak spot, if you want to call it that. But when your pass rush is so good, how weak is it? I mean, because the safety tandem of Jimmy Ward and Jaquaski Tartt, I mean, I'd put that up there with any other group. So tell me where Seattle can. I mean, if all you're talking about is two players, Russell Wilson and Jamal Adams, and that closes the gap, yeah, sure thing, buddy.
All right, guys, I think we'll end it there. And for the record, Matt, I also did kind of say they're poor at drafting, so it's not that bad. I said it's two Rashad Pennies, kind of jokingly, but I understand.
Sure, or it could be 3 or 4 Shaq Griffins.
Yep. They can flip those picks. Other teams aren't bad at drafting first rounders.
Exactly. Well, listen, Nick Bosa notwithstanding, look at some of the players that are here on the Fred Warner, 3rd round pick.
Yep. George Kittle,
5th round pick. So you're talking about some of the best players in the NFL that you could find in the middle rounds, and they gave it up for a splash. Okay, well, good luck when that splash backfires in 2 years. Oh, by the way, they still have to pay him.
Yep. Yeah. We'll leave it at that, guys. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our handles are below on the screen. Make sure you hit that like button. Drop a comment below. Did the Seahawks get completely fleeced? Do you think it was worth it? And subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this.
Go ahead and hit the bell for all your notifications. We're always bringing you great 49ers content.
Thanks, guys.
Go Niners.